Great. Good morning, everybody, or good evening, or good afternoon, depending on where you're logging in from. It's such a pleasure to have you here today with us for this wonderful session that is being sponsored through a partnership by the International Trade Center, through the Markup Program in collaboration with the EU and the Sankalp Forum. So welcome for those of you who are new to Sankalp. Welcome to Sankalp. I had the pleasure of joining Sankalp last year before the borders closed, and it was such an amazing forum that we held in Nairobi. But I think it's even greater now that we're able to connect in real time and across the world. So karibuni. My name is Nur Mugambi, and I'm happy to be your guide and moderator for this session. Today's session is focusing on the spotlight on East Africa and the investment opportunities. And surely we have a fantastic panel that represents countries from around the region and international. We have speakers from Kenya, from Rwanda, from Tanzania, from Addis, from France, and the Netherlands. And today you're going to gain valuable insights. You're going to gain the regulatory perspective on the investment opportunities across East Africa. You're going to get the practitioners' experience. We're going to hear from two amazing startup entrepreneurs who are in the space of agriculture value addition. We're also going to hear from the EU in terms of their Africa Investment Plan opportunities. And we will have three DFIs sharing with us their opportunities for partnership, collaboration, including opportunities for blended finance. So if you'll allow me, I will introduce the speakers. But meanwhile, there is a poll that is being shown. We ask you to help us fill that poll. We're interested to get your views in terms of what are the biggest challenges that we find SMEs facing in East Africa in terms of raising money. Are the challenges around the funding mismatch? Is it a technical skill issue? Is it the risk perception or the perceived risk issue? Is it the cost of money? We know interest rates on the continent are quite high when you compare to other markets. Is that the issue? Or is it the lack of collateral and the need for more innovative collateral structures? So help us fill that poll as I introduce you to our panel. So we will receive a special presentation from Mr. Jean-Baptiste Havugimana. Mr. Baptiste is the director at the East African community. He's been with the EAC Secretariat for more than 5 years, being a key policymaker, decision maker, and influencer, looking at agriculture and food security, looking at industry and SME development, touching on energy, tourism, wildlife, and environmental issues. So we're very honored to have Mr. Jean with us. Karibu sana, Jean. We're also happy to have Mr. Charles Omusana, who is the chief economist. He's a principal economist at the EAC. He's been with the EAC for several years, responsible for their investment and private sector promotion. We're looking forward to hearing his thoughts. Mr. Omusana has been with the EAC for about 5 years. Previously, he was deputy director for investment facilitation at the Uganda Investment Authority. We're very excited to have Jennifer Odera. Jennifer is an amazing entrepreneur. Just listening to her story, I've just been so inspired. She has an early stage business that focuses on value addition and specialty tea in Kenya. She's describes herself as an avid tea drinker and loves to travel, and has spent some time in the hospitality industry, which has informed her business. We have Shakil Padamsi. Shakil is another amazing startup entrepreneur. Maybe some of you remember meeting Shakil at the last Sankalp. He was also a speaker, so we're happy to have him back. He also has set up a specialty business focusing on coffee. So it's great to hear from both Shakil and Jennifer about the experience that they've gone through. Shakil is particularly interested in social enterprises. We have several amazing speakers representing the development community and the development finance community. Please allow me to welcome Mr. Cedric Merel. He's the head of cooperation with the EU. Allow me to welcome Leo Eugene. He's with Agrifi, with the AFD. Please welcome Gloria Mamba. She's the director of trade. She's the general director at the Trade Development Bank, TDB. And we also welcome Jim Brands, who's a senior associate with FMO, focusing on partnerships and impact. So that is our panel. I'm sure you have read their bios online in terms of the bio section on Sankalp. And it's really interesting to see the results that are coming through. So if you've not had a chance to put your results and your thoughts, please feel free so we can have a look at those results. And I see a number of us feel that the issues around a funding mismatch. So we're going to talk about that today. We're going to talk about this issue and opportunity for blended finance, opportunities that the policymakers have in store for us, leveraging on the Africa Free Continental Trade Area and various other trade agreements that will help create that enabling environment and hopefully reduce some of that cost of funding. Now, without further ado, allow me to pass the mic, as it were, over to Mr. Jean, who will walk us through a fantastic presentation on the EAC. Mr. Jean, please unmute your line and welcome to your presentation.
Thank you very much, Nuru. I hope everyone can hear me. Thank you very much. I wish to present to you the East African Regional Agriculture Investment Plan. And we talked about investment since yesterday. I think in the opening session, all speakers yesterday, one after the other, they highlighted the major reasons why should investors choose EAC as their next investment destination, especially in the agriculture sector and agro industry. One of the speakers did mention that 70% of agriculture in the East African community is agriculture-led. Industry is agriculture-led. And that more than 60%, I think, if I'm not mistaken, of cross-border trade is about agriculture commodities. So here we come with the tool that as a region we think can help us attract investors in the agriculture and ensure that the percentages that we saw yesterday, people were trying to come across 70% of industry-led agriculture, agriculture-led industry, and the 60% of cross-border trade, can become reality. I wish that once I finish to present, to make this presentation, ladies and gentlemen, I wish that we have responded to the question whether the Regional Agriculture Investment Plan can be a tool fit for that purpose of attracting investment in the agriculture sector. And I wish that your feedback will tell us after the presentation that indeed you have responded to the question. This is a tool that can help us actually increase investment in the agriculture sector. I cannot talk about Regional Agriculture Investment Plan without talking about the Malabo Declaration. I think Honorable Deputy Secretary General in charge of productive sector, social sectors, Christopher Zivamo talked about this yesterday. Heads of state took a decision, and it was in June 2014 in Malabo, Guinea. And the decision was for them to ensure that they put in place a plan that can help accelerate agriculture growth and transform, agriculture commodities to ensure prosperity and improve the livelihood of the people of the African continent. And this was under the Improve the CADAP, which is the Comprehensive Africa Agriculture Development Plan. And this was meant to be a dynamic plan to empower Africans. One, to nourish people and economies. Second, this is about food security. Second, to grow and have much and enough food. This is about the food security again. And then the processed food. This is about agro-processing. So this is the plan of Africa. How are we East Africans trying to implement that plan? The implementation of that plan on the East African community actually went through the commitment, because that plan has a commitment. And I will go through commitment number 2, enhancing investment in the agriculture, halving poverty by the year 2025 through inclusive agriculture growth and transformation, and then boosting intra-African trade in agriculture commodities and services. And the 6th one, enhancing resilience and of livelihood and production system to climate variability and risks. This commitment to be achieved, the goals, and those goals which led actually those goals are funding agriculture to 10%. Each partner, each country on the continent of Africa, allocating 10% of its budget as a standalone investment in the agriculture to ensure a 60% annual growth in the agriculture in each partner, in each country of the African continent. And second, agriculture productivity to double by 2025. If we are at I don't know how much, because it depends on country, but whatever rates that we have currently, we have to make sure that by 2025, this agriculture productivity doubles, and it requires a lot of inputs, a lot of seed varieties, as we will see it. Increase farmers' resilience to climate change and the weather by 30%. This is where droughts, floods, desert locusts come. Reduce post-harvest losses by 50% by 25. Post-harvest losses. I think those from Mbeya, those from with the rice, paddy rice, they know about what post-harvest losses is when they are dealing with the harvesting rice. Then triple intra-African agriculture trade by 2025. Let me limit myself on those goals 1, 2, 4, and 5, and then allow me to go to straight to RIPE. How is RIPE responding to those commitments to ensure that the goals are achieved? 6 areas of intervention. And before I go to those 6 areas of intervention, what is it that, what is RIPE? Actually, if we have the national agriculture investment plans in each of the partner states, let me talk about the 6 of these. And why do we need now a regional agriculture investment plan? Why can't countries do it on their own? Why do they need a regional agriculture investment plan? Under the 6 areas of intervention that I mentioned there, actually, the regional agriculture investment plan, which is a coordination tool for the East African community. Now, this is the one for EAC, to harmonize resource mobilization efforts, to avoid that each country in the community goes it alone, so that we go as a block. And once we go as a block, we have a strength. And, our negotiation power is, strengthened. To identify areas and opportunities for investment, those tangible impact-bearing interventions. And then along those impact-bearing interventions, ensure that, we get a full collaboration of EAC partner states. This is the chart of interventions. Allow me to go one by one over the interventions. I will try to be short, going straight to the point. Now, the first one is increasing regional food supply. This is regional food security. And you can see the whole budget for the plan is 440 million, and this one is 360 million. The share, the line is the share. Yeah, because anything you can do without food security, and then you are doing nothing. quality comes after you have produced. Certification comes after you have produced. Trade comes after you have produced. Anything you do, you need to make sure that you have the production. What we have opportunities at both regional and national levels, but I will very much focus on national, of course, regional levels, but also on national, showing where potential investors can go in directly. Let me, on this one, start by point B, small-scale irrigation schemes using solar energy for water pumps. And I'm actually focusing on this one because there are examples that has shown to be very much, powerful in this region. We have a pilot small-scale irrigation scheme in Jinja, Uganda. We have one in Mingi in Kenya. We have two in Rwanda, in Kayonza and Musanze, where these pilot, projects in those countries have shown to be very, very good, very, powerful in a way that even the surrounding, the hosting communities, they tend to, to adopt the same on their very small plot of land. Allow me to go straight to reduced post-harvest losses. We have 30%. That's what was said yesterday. Of course, it varies from one country to another. 30% is happen to be a regional average. And I put rice paddy because this is one of the area where we have very big losses, post-harvest losses. From the harvesting, when they harvest, trying to get the grains from the tree, and then trying to drying areas which are not covered, and some rice can catch the aflatoxin. Even the factory where you want to peel, when peeling the rice, taking the ensuring that you get the rice, the normal rice. And here, if we copy, we can copy from Thailand, we can copy from Japan. They managed. Why can't we check how did they do? And they keep doing it on sustainable basis. And climate smart agriculture approaches, drought and pest and diseases, seed-resistant varieties. Let me not spend much on this one because not many countries have tried this, but they are in the process of adopting some of the approaches. We know the example of cassava. There are cases for cassava varieties that can resist to some pests and diseases that have been used in Kenya and Tanzania. Insurance schemes. People have started using insurance schemes, to ensure that they protect the produce when there are droughts, when there are disaster risks. At the regional level, for once we get to the production, and once we to create a conducive environment for investors to operate at the regional level, we need to make sure that the NTBs are eliminated. NTBs related to agriculture communities should be eliminated. Policies, trade policies and regulations such as rules of origin, they have to be harmonized, not only harmonized, but also implemented. Yeah, because they don't have to be there just to be there, because they are there and they are good, but they have to be implemented. A harmonizing market information system for crops, livestock and fisheries, and then control and surveillance mechanisms. This is where, for example, traceability is very much needed. We have to know if rice is coming to Kenya, what tells me that this rice is coming from Tanzania or is it coming from Rwanda? Whether, traceability is also very key along this area. The second area of intervention is food utilization. And on this area, I actually tried to identify two major things. One at the national level is calls for a standard for fortified food, which can be harmonized and regional at regional level. And you might have heard about some companies, for example, in Kigali, the Kigali Compact Food. You have heard about some companies in Tanzania, even dealing with the fortified seeds. We need all this. And this is where one of the areas where investors can come in. But we need standards, we need protocols and guidelines to know how to do it. At the regional level, we can urge partners to embrace ESG branding. And while embracing ESG branding, you make sure that you show investors that you are doing the same thing at the same time and in the same way. And if we have made in ESG stroke URT, made in ESG stroke in Rwanda, made in ESG stroke in ESG Kenya, this can send outside a very good signal to show that there is a product made in ESG, even though the countries of origin of ESG is Kenya or URT or Rwanda. Yeah, and we need also to recommend food and drink packaging, a good packaging that really attract. This is another area where investors can come in, and we have to make sure that they come. And this is the way we can do it. The third one, I hope I still have my minutes. I think I still have like 7, right?
Actually, sir, I've been posting in your message. You have 2 minutes left, sir.
Thank you. Okay. The third one, promoting value addition in strategic value chain. This is the second biggest actually share in the RIPE, where we need to make sure that in trying to reduce post-harvest losses, and in trying to ensure that there are some different diverse uses of our harvest, our crops. This is where actually agro-processing comes in. And this is where we add value. And for us to do it, we need production, because we cannot add value to the production which is not there. That's where actually, if we go back to the intervention number 1, small-scale irrigation scheme is solar pumps production, fertilizer production, pesticide registration, efficacy trials of pesticide and certification, seed multiplication will come in this particular area. And this is the reason why it is the second largest under the Regional Agriculture Investment Plan. The other one, harmonizes standards for agriculture commodities and their technical regulations. I think for now, we have made a lot of efforts in terms of standards. I think the standard department obviously has done quite a lot of things. And we even have the sanitary and phytosanitary measures, SPS measures, that have been done to ensure that, our agriculture commodities, the little production we have at least quality standards. At the regional level, what we are proposing under value addition, you cannot have a value addition if you don't have the skills to transform. So for us to have the skills to transform, we need to establish regional centers of excellence for strengthening skills development for various commodity value chains. And here, TVET's establishment of TVET dedicated to increasing skills of both farmers and the other stakeholders and at all levels of the value chain is very much needed. I think this is working in Ethiopia. They have done it and it is working. And we should not have a shame to copy what Ethiopia has done. And there are even some other countries in the partner state that have tried to do the same. We have also to make sure that we learn from each other and not trying to compete. Partner states obviously they have to try to collaborate, compete, learn from each other, not competing. So this is one of the areas where investors, if they come and they can establish TVETs, training capacity building centers, TVETs dedicated to a given special, line level of the value chain. Development of regional policy, agribusiness.
I'm so sorry. I'm so
yes?
sorry. We are over time, sir. So maybe if you could wrap up so we can proceed, please.
Thank you very much. Maybe to move quickly to ensure that maybe I don't skip a few things that maybe I was supposed to say. Having agriculture statistical data hubs at the regional level to ensure, sharing information, or promoting regional agriculture investment forums, similar to Sankalp, and having the Sankalp of ESC, that can help a lot. And for any program, there is always a monitoring and evaluation. And this one has been started by the African Union. They have started actually evaluating the RIPE at the African continental level and the CADAP. But at ESC, we are planning actually to have one that will help us to evaluate how better we'll be doing. And the way forward, and to finish, this is my last slide. We are going to fast track dissemination of the regional agriculture investment plan into regional, translating into regional most spoken languages, and domestication, aligning it with the national agriculture investment plans. And this is something that we plan to do by August 2021. And second, we are planning to help the chair of Council of Ministers to identify and formally nominate an ESC champion for the regional agriculture investment plan by September 2021. So the champion, you know what the champion does. And when it is a very influential person in the region, I think it can spearhead the program well and help in the investment forums like this one. In close collaboration with the champion, we will organize a roundtable resource mobilization forum with the development partners and investors in September 2021. And we will also try to continue to collaboration with the ITC and the Sankalp Forum and all our, our development partners to ensure using their renowned resource mobilization ability to reach out to more credible, investment. And the last but not least, the impact of COVID has shown that the time for Africa to break its dependence on imports, especially of imports of food, is now. Agriculture-led industry, agro-processing or food transformation, whatever you name it, it is an opportunity to develop a broader regional supply chain and the knowledge-based economy for Africa and in general, and in ESC in particular. And then we can break that import, dependence. Moderator, thank you very much. And I hope I have responded to the question. Thank you.
Sir, thank you so much. You've covered so much ground in a very short time, and I know you were very constrained, and I know how policymakers really want to pass a message along. Your teachers at heart, I think. So thank you, sir, so much for your comments. The rest of the speakers, please, will ask that we keep time. Allow me to ask Mr. Omusana, please unmute your line as we come to you. We've heard a lot from Mr. Jean about the opportunities for the regional agriculture investment plans and the opportunities for efficiency, for scale, for negotiation power for the EAC block. Maybe you can really speak briefly, just touch on any additional areas that you might want to touch on, particularly looking at the investment opportunities that the Sankalp participants, including the investors in the room, might be keen to look at and leverage, and also speak to the Africa Free Continental Trade Area, how we can now leverage what we've heard from Mr. Jean within the continent. There is also a question from Ms. Sonali that is posted on the chat. If you could address that in your remarks as well. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Thank you, Noor. Good morning, everyone. And good afternoon or good evening from wherever you are. I've been introduced by Noor. My name is Charles Omsana, and I'm with the ESC. For investors to set up in a given location, there are several considerations that they make. And among those are the strength of the economy. And I must say that as the ESC, despite the COVID pandemic, our economies are quite resilient. And as predicted by the World Bank, this 2021, some partner states will grow by as high as 5.5%. That shows that the ESC economies are resilient and strong. And again, for investors, they want to know how are the investment laws in the region. We already have an investment policy for the region, which has specific interventions for the private sector, but partner states investment laws are very clear on equity in terms of most favored nation treatment, and as well as the national treatment. So they also allow employment of expatriates. They do provide for repatriation of profits, and as well as the protection of against expropriation. And most of the partner states have set up one-stop centers. This is to support the facilitation of investors and as well as simplifying the investment procedures. What am I trying to say? That in the ESC, for investors who are coming in, the processes and for setting up your business have been simply streamlined. Just go to an IPA, there are one-stop centers there, and they'll give you services that require you to set up foot in the respective partner states. In terms of infrastructure, we are all aware that most of the ESC partner states have embarked on improving their rail network. Some are into railway construction, doing the standard railway gauge. That is to ease movement of goods and persons, as well as setting up industrial parks, EPZs, and special economic zones. So this is also giving investors the much needed infrastructure to come and set up shop in the region. In terms of power generation, we know that most countries are looking at how to utilize the enormous potential they have in renewables, especially hydro and solar, and those are also opportunities. In terms of communication, most of the partner states are now in the one area network, which eases communication for the business people. If you're located, you have outlets in various parts of the region, you can communicate cheaply. In terms of human resource capital development, my colleague, Mr. JB, has talked about it. There's also the need. We have a young and energetic labor force, which is trainable, educated, as well as they have good productivity and IT savvy. Why am I talking about that? You see, if an investor needs to get a workforce that meets their standards, which is productive, and in the region, we have that labor force. And also where they are short, they are trainable. When you train them, they become very productive. In terms of the market size, as a region, we have a population of over almost 180 million people. That's a huge market. And also in terms of those who want to go into agriculture, as my colleague JB talked, we have a land space of over 2.4 million square kilometers. That's huge. In terms of our GDP, the GDP is over 200 billion. It is more, but growing. In terms of security, I mean, the region is secure, and in terms of our political leadership, depending on the constitutions of the respective partner states, elections are held regularly. However, we still have a challenge in terms of access to finance. Maybe I should answer that question at this point. That yes, we could be having several banks in the region, but the cost of finance is still high and not in business friendly. And we need to work towards addressing that. The cost, because borrowing money at 25% or above doesn't make much business sense. In terms of, because I was also requested to talk about what are we doing as a region post-COVID. As a region, we are developing a post-COVID economic recovery plan, which mainly concentrates on looking at improving the investment climate, enhancing trade, transportation, digital transformation, reorienting manufacturing and value chains, as well as looking at services that enhance trade and investment. Again, I must say that as EAC, we are a common market, and we have already common external tariffs, a common Customs Management Act, single customs territory, one-stop border post for ease movements across the border. We have free movement of factors of production, and we hope that by 2024, we shall be a monetary union, and finally we shall be a political federation. Noor, can you give me a minute to talk about the African Free Continental Trade Area? Is that possible?
Yes, sir. And then I'll transition you to the chat so you can add any other comments you need to make on the chat, as well as answer Sonali. So please, one minute on AFCTA.
Okay, thank you. As most of us could be aware, the investment matters under the African Free Continental Trade Area are supposed to be negotiated in the coming phase, the next phase. So for now, they have not the negotiations on the investment protocol are yet to commence, but consideration at the moment is, or the discussions at the moment are looking at towards using the Pan-African Investment Code as a basis for negotiation. But the key pillars under the PIKE are investment promotion and facilitation, investment protection, investor obligations, and partner states commitment. And I think the details on each of those, I'll put them under the chat. Thank you.
Thank you for being such a sport, sir. And I know you're paining because we cut you short, but please, if you could respond to Sonali in the chat. She sent a message to request some question on the EAC. And then I see a comment from Masawe as well. So please, sir, if you could use the chat to respond. Allow me to ask Jennifer to please unmute your line. Jennifer, we are pressed for time. So we ask that please don't make me tell you no more minutes. So Jennifer, as you unmute your line, please, we've heard about the regional agricultural investment plans. We've heard about the importance of packaging and branding through value addition to it, both attract investors, but also as an investment opportunity. Please, can you talk about your early stage business? Give a quick overview of your company and the pathway you took to start the business, including your financing approach. Welcome.
So my name is Jennifer, as been mentioned. I am the founder of Tea & Company. Tea & Company is a business that is looking to curate premium quality goods that are made in Africa. And we put these goods together to create remarkable gifts that tell a story of African excellence. Along the path of doing that, I began to look for great quality tea that was easily available in other parts of the world, that had come from Kenya, wherever else I'd lived. But once I had moved home, I realized that it is almost impossible to find great quality tea easily available on our shelves and around. And so that sparked off the idea that something is missing, and I needed to understand why that was not so. And so I decided to just follow my passion, follow my curiosity, and to begin some market research. So as I went into trying to find out why this tea wasn't easily available, I came to find that there are many infrastructural issues in the tea industry. While we are one of the largest producers of tea in the world, we are not doing the best we can and redeeming the right amount of value that we could for the quality of our product. I say this in comparison to looking at our contemporaries, who are China, India, and Sri Lanka, where each of these countries are they come together with us, make up the 4 top producers in the world. But for each of them, they have focused on creating a local demand for the tea, which allows them to stabilize prices, which allows them to have internal demand and gives them a bit of a buffer for situations like COVID. So when we look at the case of China, the demand for their tea did not drop and actually increased in COVID. Whereas when we look at ourselves, because we export 95% of our tea, we were really in a very hazardous position. And because of this, we are also subject to changes in the value of our currency, which then make our goods not as competitive as other markets. So we very often face issues where tea is left unharvested, raw tea is left unharvested and left to rot because we're not able to produce it. And so when embargoes come up against the countries where, against some of our largest importers of tea, once again, we are the ones that suffer. So I became very passionate about focusing on, one, not taking our best export primarily out of the country, but introducing Kenyans locally and East Africans and hopefully Africans at large to great quality tea. So instead of the CTC, the low-grade tea that we find in our tea bags, we as well need to start drinking what the Asians drink, which is loose leaf tea. So I focused on creating a tea line called Sip Bold Tea, where we focus on using pure teas, processing spices, herbs, and flowers to create tea blends that tell the story of Africa, that tell the story of our culture and our heritage. So far, we have created 4 different tea blends. We have 3 that will be launched this year. And through this, the idea is to get the local market, and I say local speaking about the EAC, drinking our loose leaf teas, because most of the countries in the region are moving into the tea industry, and we want to be able to get better prices for our teas. So on the path to doing this, I realized that my own challenges in finding spaces and finding the way to scale and in finding finance made me realize that there's a huge gap and a huge need for collaborative spaces where people can come in and process teas, so we can reduce the barrier to entry for other people who are interested in tea, and it can become an avenue for entrepreneurship. So what I'm currently working on, what I'm currently raising money for, is to create a collaborative processing space where we can process our spices and sell them to other businesses, but also allow different businesses to come into the space, make use of our machinery, make use of the storage space, and scale their businesses as well. So in doing so, the hope is to encourage other Africans to get into the tea space, to start creating premium quality tea that will be sold at higher prices, and therefore will allow farmers to reap much more than they're currently getting. Because for the past 10 years, the pricing of CTC tea has been falling, and it's now just over $1 for a kg. But when we look at loose leaf tea, when we look at some of the premium blends, like for example, I stock a white silver needle tea, that sells for almost $70, $70 a kg. That's my alarm going off, letting you know that my time is up. But that is the opportunity for investment. That is the opportunity to improve infrastructure and systems currently existing in the tea industry.
Thank you so much for being digital and having your own stopwatch. Quick question in terms of what was your financing path? How did you raise capital to start your business?
So as always, you start with your friends, family, and fools. So the people that know you, and if the people that know you can put money into your venture, then that speaks to what you're trying to do and then allows you to follow more formal routes. So unfortunately, the reality is in Nairobi, a lot of the companies that get funded don't tend to have a purely indigenous team. So it has been a challenge. I have not found formal investment, but I have raised money through my own personal savings and through my family savings to launch the business thus far. But I'm hoping that going forward, that changes.
Indeed, it's a story of many entrepreneurs. So thank you so much, Jennifer. And everybody, please feel free to engage Jennifer on the chat with questions on her journey and the specialty tea business that she's started and the 3 blends that she'll be launching. Allow me to ask Shakil to please unmute your line. Shakil, we've heard a lot this morning from policymakers. We've heard Jennifer's experience and her story using literally bootstrapping to get her business going. You have a bit of a different story. Please tell us about your business, how you're able to raise impact investment, and what's the next step. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Nora. So I'm one of the co-founders of the Coffee Gardens, and we produce specialty coffee at our small washing station in eastern Uganda. And we really focus on quality and traceability. We're working with around 400 smallholder farmers, and we also employ about 100 people from the local community. We're young, we're just over 3 years old, But in this time, we've been able to establish a multi-year sales agreement with a UK, it's now an EU importer, and we're also working with some European-based INGOs to improve farmer resilience. And we're three. There's Dana, who is also my wife, and she's Czech, and we met in Ethiopia, and actually a lot of this story was inspired by Ethiopian wild forest coffee. And our third partner is Michael, who is Ugandan, and we studied together in the UK. But Dana and I actually came to Uganda in 2016 because she spotted a quality gap with Ugandan coffee, and we wanted to see why. And we decided to set up a business, and there was absolutely, of course, an ambition to make money, but it wasn't our primary motivating factor. It's about how can you produce good quality coffee in a way that benefits farmers and the environment. So when we formed together, we had our various levels of experience, but none of us had worked in the private sector before. And so, when we sat up, we did do our initial projections, and we could see that, by year 2, year 3, we would need a good chunk of money, but we had no idea how we were going to approach it. But we kept saying to ourselves, you know what, we're still in year 1. We've got no idea whether we'll get there. So let's just focus on now, and we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. But around the same time, I was also very lucky that I had the opportunity to attend Sankalp, and this is in 2018. And I was talking to an investor who I was introduced to. He was using terms like mezzanine finance and convertible notes, and he just saw this blank look on my face. And he said, I think you should go to a boot camp or an accelerator, because if you do want to grow your business, you need to learn, you need to develop these skills, and it's never too early to start. And I took it seriously. But when I started looking for these online, when I came back to Uganda, I ran into a number of barriers. A lot of them were saying, you have to have been operating for a certain number of years, you have to have a certain turnover. And so we just saw that there wasn't any space for us to move in. And we said, let's just focus on slowly building our company. We were really lucky that we had some savings. We were really lucky that we had some family support. But then in 2019, it was completely out of the blue that we got an email from ITC Markup asking us if we wanted to apply for certain programs. And that's actually how we were able to sign up for our first ever Access to Finance bootcamp. And for me personally, it was like this mist had lifted. All of a sudden, all these really intimidating terms that we had no idea what they meant were being explained to us by people who were really passionate. And the other thing is that like most of the entrepreneurs that we met, or all the entrepreneurs we met, we're really passionate about what we do, but at the same time we're terrified about losing our business because we signed the wrong agreement. So we got a lot of coaching, we got a lot of support, and by the time last February came around, we felt ready. We had our pitches, we had our projections, we had our budgets, and of course we were totally oblivious about what was about to happen to the whole world, but we started being introduced to investors. And we weren't looking for much, we were just looking for about $50,000. We wanted to grow our business to the next level without compromising quality. And we identified about 25, 30 potential investors that looked like they might be a good fit. We set up our Trello boards, we were tracking all of our opportunities, but we quickly saw a pattern of problems. The most common issue was that we were too small. We were told that we needed to apply for at least 3 times, if not more, than what we wanted to be eligible. Others were telling us that we needed to have been asking them for working capital of $250,000 a year for several years before they could talk to us about CapEx. Others were telling us that we were too early stage. They only invested in people or companies who were making a profit. And those organizations that were offering smaller ticket sizes were asking for something like 25% interest. And in many cases, we were seeing term sheets that were so onerous that we would just panic. For example, one term sheet that we saw had a pretty high level of interest, but they also wanted personal guarantees. They also wanted board representation. There were all sorts of hidden costs, and there were also early repayment penalties. And I could keep going, but I won't. But as every entrepreneur who's been in this situation knows that it's complicated, takes a lot of time. We were really lucky because our coaches had prepped us. They said, these are the questions to ask right at the beginning, so you don't spend 3 months and realize it's not a good fit. But even despite all the help we were getting, we felt that we were being blocked by what I would say is quite a high degree of inflexibility. And then, of course, COVID hit, and we all know what happened there. But I would say, our story does have a positive outcome, at least so far, and I don't think I would have been invited to speak otherwise. But we were very successful in our application with Rabobank Foundation. And when I talk about success, it wasn't just about the money. We were looking for a lender, but we were really lucky that we also found an experienced partner who were more interested in not just helping us grow the company, but also delivering impact for our farming community. And I think I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Shakil. I saw Jennifer nodding a lot with the comments that you raised in terms of the experience seems to be very similar in terms of having to knock on many doors. You're being approached, or you're approaching impact investors who have term sheets that are similar to commercial finance. So then you get confused in terms of, I thought this was impact investment. Why are you looking for certain collateral requirements and certain terms and conditions that are very similar, and even the interest rate very similar to your commercial finance. So thank you for sharing your experience. Jennifer talked briefly about her investment needs and the fact that she's looking at setting up a collaborative space for entrepreneurs. You've talked about being successful with Rabobank and the key lever being them being a lender, but at the same time, they came on board as a partner. Just quickly, Shakil, there are investors in the room. I think you've kind of signaled some of the things that you would expect investors to touch on. What else would you want to cover in terms of how investors can help partner with organizations like yourselves and TICO to really increase positive social impact?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to be too hard on them because I've seen how much work they're doing to reach SMEs, but we still saw so many big obstacles, especially for the S side of the SMEs. So I think what we need is a little bit more flexible finances. And I don't know if there's a way to, identify, better align risk assessments, especially, there are lots of businesses that are small, they are young, but they are still credible and they have real potential. So for ways to identify that, to be able to build this kind of broad-based and sustainable and equitable growth we keep hearing about.
Thank you so much. And that's a very good segue to Cedric. Cedric, I'll ask you to unmute your line. And we've heard about the policy perspective and what governments are doing to create regional agricultural investment plans, set the infrastructure, just create that enabling environment. And you've heard the two stories from Shakil and Jennifer in terms of their pathway and the struggles. And the patience, but then at the same time, the partnerships that they've been able to forge. Maybe you can speak to the role that the EU is playing in terms of being one of the largest donors that's implementing sustainable development in the region. How is the European Union supporting international investment in East Africa? And if you could speak to some of the technical challenges that Shakil had mentioned and the same opportunity that Jennifer also mentioned in terms of collaborative spaces. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Noro. I'm very pleased to be here with you, and I'm grateful that you give me the opportunity to present a few of the products, I could say, that the EU is financing. I heard very well the speeches and the pitch, rather, of Jennifer and Shakil, and I will come back to this. Let me start maybe by the question that was the topic of this session, which is about attracting investment in East Africa. Why should East Africa be an investment destination rather than any other else? I think I would start by saying that East Africa is the East African community in particular is an island of stability and predictability, and this is important for investors. It's important in particular for foreign investors. It's also, of course, important for MSMEs that are trying to develop in the countries. I would like to insist also on the untapped potential that exists in those countries. Of course, we immediately think of minerals, but it's the same for tourism. We have to bear in mind that the East African community region is 180 million people, so it means that there is a market. There is a market for all those products. I think Jennifer was hinting at that when she said that we want to reach out to our, let's say, fellow East African tea drinkers. This market will grow in the future, but we should attract the right investors if we want this to be a long-lasting destination for investment. By right investors, I mean the investors that will look at the green transition, that will look at job creation, and that will embrace the digital transformation. I think these three areas are really priority that the EU is really trying to push for the future. In particular, I would like to insist, and I think this was also hinted at before, on a conducive business environment. And this is something the EU is really trying to support along a number of other partners, of course. But you asked me about the institutional aspect and what we do. So we really try to work on this for investment, for private sector development, and for trade. By trade, I mean in particular exports within the region, exports to the EU. This is something that we support a lot, with a lot about sanitary and phytosanitary measures and so on, but also worldwide. And on their side, I feel that investors need access to finance. By investors, I mean foreign investors. They need access to finance, but they also need to rely on the MSMEs. And these MSMEs are the first job provider of the East African region. So we should look at their needs. We should look at the bottlenecks for their growth. Skilled workers is clearly an issue, and this is something we work on. But coming back maybe to the request of Jennifer and Shakil more specifically, I would like to insist on access to finance. So access to finance is an issue that has to do with large-scale investors, but also small and micro, let's say, private businesses. Let me say in a few words about the large-scale investors. The European investment plan, such as the plan of other investors, but our plan focuses on two main tools for investment: blending meaning that we bring grants in order to trigger loans, in order to make the loans more affordable for the financiers and for the investors. Secondly, guarantees. By guarantees, we mean de-risking private sector investment. We mean leveraging additional financing, in particular crowding in the private sector. And I would just like to refer to the windows that we have for the guarantees, and in particular the link that I made with the green transition that I was mentioning before. We are talking of energy, but we are talking of renewable energy. We are talking of agriculture, but we are talking of sustainable agriculture. We are talking of cities, but we are talking of green cities. And I would like to mention a particular window on MSMEs that may also address this issue of the small companies, with this idea that these guarantees will trickle down to through, I would say, local finance institutions to the MSMEs, and we will put a set of criteria for them to access this financing where nowadays they cannot access. I would like to give an example. In a number of countries in the region, if you are a woman and you want to access a loan, you face the issue that you are not entitled to let's say, finance because you don't have the collateral, because the collateral may be in the land, for example, maybe in the name of your husband, and it would be an issue. There was a question in the chat before regarding MFIs and SACCOs, and there as well, I see an opportunity for them to tap into this window. I will leave it to my colleagues from the FMO and from AFD, Jim and Leo, to provide more details on these guarantees, at least the ones that they are supporting respectively. Maybe just a few words to go a bit more into the details of examples. 3 examples, very concrete. Uganda, and Shakil is in Uganda. The Yield Investment Fund, 20 million euros, a ticket of 250,000 to 3 million euros for social impact investment in targeted agriculture SMEs. I can share the link on the chat after for you to confirm the eligibility of your company or of your association. I'm not sure Shakil has reached out to Yield Fund. This would be an opportunity. Another example for Tanzania, because this is where I work, a similar program will come up very soon to support tea, coffee and horticulture, 12 million euros. The ticket size is not clearly confirmed yet, but this is something we will propose as well. The third example, so this is just to say that we are addressing here the missing middle in the investment space between the microfinance institution and the big financiers. And here we are looking at addressing this missing link. The third and last example I would like to give is about Markup, which is financing this panel here, and the role of the International Trade Center, which was mentioned by Shakil before, for business development services, for training and mentoring, for pitching events like this one. I think this is very important to get yourself known about what you are doing, especially since you are doing great things. Just a word on the future, we will be looking at supporting MSMEs again in the future for innovation, for women, and we will use similar instruments. Just a word on, to conclude on my side. Investments will attract investments, and we want them to be green because we want them to last. We want them to be inclusive and sustainable. Thank you very much.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. That's a very nice way to end. And you covered a lot of ground, Mr. Cedric, and you really brought out the point that access to finance is important, not only for the market, but also the investors. And within that also is providing the credit guarantees to just increase acceleration of the deployment of some of the capital that's available in the investment community, which is a great opportunity to segue. You mentioned Leo. Leo, can I ask you to unmute your line? Cedric talked about the Euro investment plan, and he gave some examples of some of the work that the EU is doing in Uganda and Tanzania through programs like Markup and some of the upcoming programs. And Cedric, please definitely post the details on the chat. Leo, you are working on a very interesting program called A Green Fee. I'm not sure if I've said it correctly. Maybe if you could talk about the program, if you could talk about why the initiative is important, why investors might be interested in it, and how does it address some of the opportunities that we've heard today within the EAC. Thank you.
Thank you, Nuru. So briefly, for those who don't know AFD, we are a public development bank, French development bank owned by the French state. So we work in Africa on the agricultural sector through the A Green Fee program or label, which so we invest. Well, we invest in banks. Well, we lend money to banks, to public bank or to commercial banks through our subsidiary Propaco, and for lending to SMEs or MSMEs in the agricultural sector. So it's a blending program. So lines of credit with criteria of eligibility. So it's for SMEs. We take into account gender issue, climate change, both mitigation and adaptation. The objective is to have affordable resources, and we have also TA, technical assistance program, which is adapted to our clients, so to the bank and then to the final beneficiaries. So we have already signed in Uganda with Soluti, and we are, which is an MFI, and we work also with other banks, both public and commercial, which is the contract are not signed yet, so I won't go into details for this new bank, but it's we're planning to work in other banks in Uganda, also in Tanzania, and we are open, of course, to other countries in East Africa. Specifically with the European Union, so we are working on guarantee scheme with the EFSD. And so the objective of this guarantee is to both reduce the cost of the lines of credit, which makes the money more affordable both for the banks and finally for the final beneficiaries, SACCOs, MFI, SMEs, and also TA program, which can benefit both for the bank, so to structure their offers, a proposal to the agricultural companies, and also to the final beneficiary. So the objectives are to have more fundings for the sector, to de-risk this sector, and to increase also the skills, the technical skills for the actor of the sectors, taking into account the particular context. Well, the context is always important in all sectors, but particularly for the agricultural sector. You know that better than me. And to take into account the climate change, which has effects which can be very different from one region to another, and even inside a country, it can have a huge effect. So briefly, that is our green fee program. I don't know if you have more time, but I won't go into it. I can go much.
Sorry, we're so short on time, but maybe, Leo, if you could post in the chat very quickly some of the countries where the agri-fee will be focused on, and maybe some of the quantums, how much the guarantee fund is, and any details that if somebody has questions about that, they can reach you. Or
actually, the green fee program is for all. It's for all Africa. So
it's all of Africa.
For all Africa, and also some countries in Middle East. But so it's for all Africa.
And is it a current program? Has it already launched, or it's coming up?
Well, yeah, the green fee program, just AFD, has already been launched with Solitis. Then with European Union, we have just signed so end of last year, and so it will be for the next 4 years. We have 4 years to implement this program with our partners in Africa.
Fantastic. If you could just post a link there. Oh, I can see already your colleague has posted. Thank you so much, Leo, and apologies for the time pressure. Gloria, please welcome as you unmute your line. We are familiar with TDB, so maybe we just go straight into the issue. If you can tell us about some of the recent or new initiatives that TDB is working on, and we know the transformative potential of credit guarantees and partnerships with DFIs. So if you could speak to that within the context of EAC and investment attractiveness. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, and greetings from Harare. So it's still morning here, so I'll say good morning. I think many people do know the bank. I think what they may not know is the group, right? And so far beyond what we're traditionally known about the bank, we also have within the group an academy, asset management business, a captive finance, a captive insurance business, and finally our not-for-profit arm, which is the group that I'm representing today. So the not-for-profit arm is called the Trade and Development Fund. The fund really allows the group to provide program management services, blended finance, and capacity building services for many of the citizens in our region of 22 member states. And so I think really what I'm focusing on today is the activities that we do in the fund that intermediate funding from, in particular, impact and socially responsible investors to address the challenges of SMEs. So we've spoken, I think my colleagues have spoken about credit guarantees. So I'm not going to go into that, though only to say that this has been an instrument that we've used a lot over the past 35 years to facilitate access to finance in the region. We've also used lines of credit traditionally to try to reach SMEs and make sure that the local financial institutions in each country are in fact looking at these types of customers more favorably. So what is it that TDF, this new initiative within the bank, adds to these offerings? Well, I think we decided that it was really quite important to be able to focus on innovative business models and products for the missing middle. That in addition to what we've done, to what we've always been doing, we wanted to enhance these products by committing an additional pot of funds, 10% of the funds under management in the fund, to technical assistance that is used for capacity building in the SMEs that we have funded. And I think really to just give some specific examples of work we've done in the East Africa region, we've done partial guarantee to BGF, a local commercial bank in Burundi, to support product extension for WISE, which is a women-owned microfinance institution. And we hope to see them become a bank in the not too distant future. We've developed a credit guarantee scheme, a pilot credit guarantee scheme for FEMCOM, which is the women's wing of COMESA. And our first project will go live later this year in Eswatini around an abattoir, a women-owned abattoir, but we expect to see new initiatives in Burundi, in Kenya and Sudan as well through that partnership. We have recently concluded a program for KfW in Ethiopia that would allow that supports the SMEs as they weather the challenges of COVID-19 by providing an interest support element in order that they can maintain employment within their businesses. And we've done that through partnerships with banks who are with whom the bank has a relationship, Awash and Dashan. And we expect through that to reach probably about 300 SMEs, which is quite exciting for us. And then really the most focused agribusiness effort has been with where we established a facility that is managed by Grassroots Business Partners, who are a very well-known fund manager in East Africa, managing quite a bit of money in agribusiness with a very strong and robust agribusiness pipeline. And so we've used this, we've asked them to manage some money on our behalf to reach out to agribusinesses in the missing middle space. And what we've really liked about that is that they've tried to use innovative instruments. They've really made a big effort around MES, which is probably better suited to growth industries, to growth businesses than some of the other debt instruments. And we're particularly excited about this because we've also been supported in that initiative and partnered with the African Guarantee Fund, who also provided a partial risk guarantee that extends the reach for, in particular, women-owned businesses, as well as some additional technical assistance. So as we think about what we're doing in the future, really, I think many of these initiatives that I've talked about are in the pilot stage, and we're looking to see what lessons we can learn from them and how we can expand and scale them across the whole region as we see the efforts of it. But I think those are sort of the types of interventions we've had and really are excited about.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. And I know it was a lot to cover and you finished bang on time. So thank you so much, Gloria. Please, everyone engage with Ms. Gloria on the chat in terms of the opportunities and the approach of piloting and then scaling up some of the interventions. Jim, you were last, but certainly, sir, you're not least. Please, as you unmute your line, if you could speak to, and I saw, thank you for posting in the chat links to some of the programs that FMO is working on. Please speak to the Nazira, and I'm not sure what Nazira means. Speak to the Nazira program and FMO ventures, please. Thank you.
Yeah, sure, will do. Thanks. So FMO has, over the last year, set up 2 programs with the European Commission and the Dutch government under the EU's European Fund for Sustainable Development. They are both guarantee programs. Both have been operational since, I think, July last year, and both cover the entire African continent. For Nazira, we've done transactions now in Kenya and South Africa, concluding one very soon in Jordan. For our ventures program, it's Egypt, Kenya as well, South Africa, Chad, and Sierra Leone. But again, every country is eligible. I'm here mostly to allude to the Nazira program. Nazira is an Arabic word, and it's a female name for she who supports. And the thing that Nazira tries to support with is basically a question we had to all our, the financial institutions FMO helps in the Middle East and South Africa, as a question to why youth, women, migrant, were not able to get loans. And it's basically because these groups were, for these banks, they were afraid of lending to them because they were afraid that too large parts of the portfolio would default. And we thought of a way to help them with this. And we came up with a portfolio guarantee, which basically means that FMO guarantees a local bank in South Africa, in Africa or the Middle East, up to 95%. And then whenever there's a default, FMO would pay. And this is done before. Other banks do this as well. But normally what you see are pari passu guarantees, which means that for every loan that would default, 50% of those costs would go to the local bank and 50% to the guarantor, which would be FMO in this scenario. But what we've done is flipped it around. And the first loss, meaning the first 5%, remains with the bank, while 95% of the other losses are covered. So what you could see there, for example, is it's more systemic risks. So if we take an example of Jordan, where if you speak to a lot of the banks there, they would want to start lending to refugees, but they are afraid that if the crisis in Syria were to finally end, that 100% of the portfolio would go back to Syria and the bank would have 100% loss. So because of this, they're afraid to start lending to refugees. And with us, the first 5% would lose, but then the other 95% FMO and the European Commission would pay out to the bank. And this really allows banks to start doing more riskier portfolios to gender, youth, and migrants. And the last year, we've extended the program a bit. So these were the 3 initial target groups. But together with the Commission, we came up with a solution, or not a solution, but something that might help for COVID-19. So we extended the eligibility criteria to also cover COVID-affected MSMEs. And here again, you really see the same. So banks are really afraid of liquidity crunches and economies going very bad in Africa. And this guarantee can really help them, provide them comfort that the losses won't be too big, and just make sure that banks keep on lending. Then maybe, there's a TA program with it, which goes to both the end beneficiaries, being the MSMEs, as well as the banks. But maybe to very quickly also discuss the ventures program. So there it's a private equity venture capital program, investing in start and scale ups, starting from 300,000 euro investments, which is a lot of money, but for FMO or larger DFIs, it's quite little. Together with the European Commission, we came up with a way how to do this. We look at 3 sorts of sectors, being fintech, agri-tech, and energy access companies, as well as fund investments, but again, only in Africa and the Middle East. The first program, the Nazira, covers $500 million US in guarantees over the next 7 years, and the ventures program 200. I posted both links in the chat in case there's in both pages there's videos explaining the programs as well as contact information to our bank in case you think you have a proposal that would be interesting for FMO. And I'm also happy to answer any questions you might have after this session. Thank you, and I hope I'm within time.
Thank you. You all are troopers. We've been able to recover the time. I know we covered a lot. Daniela, I'm seeing a question asking, Daniela's asking, Jim, if you could please post the link to the programs that you've shared. As well as contact information, that would be great. I'm sure the banks in the room would want to reach out. I'm sure the investors in the room would be interested in FMO Ventures. That would be great. Stephanie, thank you for joining us. We've heard a lot today, ladies and gentlemen, and it's just wonderful to see how we have been engaging on the chat. So thank you so much for that. we did have a poll at the beginning of the session, if you remember, and we were talking about what are the challenges, and we found that issues around funding mismatch, risk perception, collateral were the three key areas that you identified. And I think each of the speakers have spoken to different components around that. But allow me to ask Cedric to unmute his line and attempt to just reinforce and really just make that case why East Africa should be an investment destination for partners. We heard from Gloria talking about the blended finance pilot approach that TDB through their fund is taking. We've heard about the guarantees that address the issues around risk. We've heard about the need for collaborative spaces from Jennifer to help increase efficiency. We've heard about how Shaquille, he said the mist lifted when he attended the ITC access to training session that helped him really understand the language so he can really engage with investors. And of course, we've heard from the policymakers from the EAC in terms of how they're creating that enabling environment. Cedric, if you could in a few minutes, help us just think about the final key point and the key takeaway in terms of the investment opportunities within the EAC focusing on agriculture. Thank you.
Thank you, Nuru. I will try to collect what I heard during this long session, and let me just focus on a few highlights maybe. I think that investment opportunities are many in the East African community for a number of reasons that we discussed before. If we want to focus on the agricultural value chain, which is something that is, of course, of tremendous importance, given the fact that it is the first sector that will produce investment opportunities. If I don't consider, of course, the minerals and the tourism sectors, which are a bit specific, but agriculture is the sector that brings these opportunities for export, these opportunities for job creation. And I would like to insist in particular on the EU, but also other regions in the world being a bottomless market for the East African products. I mean by that you will not, as East African businesses, produce enough to exhaust the capacity of absorption of the European Union and other partners. And I would like to insist, as a European myself, on the need that exists in the European Union for organic products. This seems maybe a bit trendy compared to all those labeling regarding organic added values and so on. But this is something that our markets are looking for, and we are not yet reaching the limit of what is requested. So this is an opportunity for investment for East African community businesses that I see as really paramount. Coming back quickly to the questions on financing and access to finance, which is clearly one of the bottlenecks for these investments to happen. We have talked about guarantees. My colleagues from TDB, from FMO, and from the AFD have also insisted a lot on these opportunities. I would mention maybe the guarantees first, because the guarantees are an opportunity to reduce the perceived risk that would exist in the East African community. So if, let's say, such investors say, yes, I would like to invest in Rwanda, but I think that in Rwanda there is a risk linked to the environment, whether it is true or not, it is his perceived risk. We will say that with this guarantee, that what you quote as the risk in the interest rate that you will provide to the end customer will be covered with the first loss guarantee by the EU and the European member states here. I would like to also insist on the fact that these guarantees are addressed to the small holders, the small companies, in the sense that they will benefit with this trickling down effect through the local investment local finance institution of a more accessible finance and a cheaper finance. We have a number of tools such as matching grants, loans, or equities that are also here to address this funding mismatch that Nuru was referring to just a few minutes before as the main bottleneck that you have identified. And I would conclude these closing remarks on my side by insisting that, and this, sorry to put once again the EU in the forefront, that if you give me the floor, you have to accept that I do it, that it should not be business as usual. It should be, and we know the constraints that the SMEs face, and it's not easy to say yes, I would like to go green because these are my values, but my business has to grow first, and sometimes we leave that for later. And I would like to insist on the fact that we will give preferential access to finance for those companies that will respect a certain number of ethical values, such as, for example, no child labor or priority to women and youth, and the green agenda of sustainable development. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we are right at the time, 12:30, to conclude this panel. We have it's like boiling the ocean. There's just so much to take care of, but I think we've gotten so many good insights, wonderful contacts that are in your chat, links to information. Please check out Jennifer's company. Please check out Shakil's company. Have a look at all the other partners that have been here, including the EAC. Without any further ado, ladies and gentlemen, that is our session. Thank you very much and have a wonderful and blessed rest of the day. Thank you.